going on, everyone? Just wanted to jump back on a live stream here. It's been a few weeks. I have been out of the country for the last 3 weeks. I've been in Hamburg, Germany, recording an album, and we're going to talk about that today. Kind of share some of my experiences with you. I do have a Backstage Journal vlog coming of this whole just wonderful trip that we had, but it's not going to come out until next year because I decided to wait until the Roofman album drops, and I'll release it as a way to promote Tice's album because I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of the way all the songs came out. I learned a ton on the session from you know, a new type of workflow to getting new guitar sounds and just thinking in different ways than I typically do. This trip was huge, and this opportunity was huge for me and sort of breaking out of my comfort zone and what I typically do and typically play. So yeah, we're gonna talk about that today. Take a few questions, hang out for a little bit. But before we go any further, it is Cyber Monday, so I have a sale to announce. If you're watching this live or you're catching this on the replay, we have 40% off of all of my video courses, all my Kemper Profiles, Helix presets, impulse responses, everything is 40% off. You can check the description box down below. If you click through one of the links for the courses, the code is BF40 at checkout. And if you buy a Helix preset or Kemper profile off my website, which is also linked down below, the discounts automatically are applied. But remember, BF40 down there. And I've gotten some questions from people requesting, you know, how do you know when sales are going live and things like that. Also in the description box is a link to sign up for my email list, which is how we notify people when sales are happening, things like that. We don't spam. I don't send very many emails, but it does happen. So yeah. Okay, Matt Bennett's got a cool question. Any new pedals that you used in Germany that blew your mind? Yes. Perfect question. I ended up buying 2 of them because, well, for 2 reasons. One, these ended up all over the record, all over Tice's record, and I was so blown away with them that I bought them. But back up. But let me talk a little bit about the session first before we jump into the gear side of things. First of all, I missed a top chat from Peter Breen. Thanks, man. I appreciate the top chat donation. Thanks for all the great content. So what happened? Well, about 2 years ago, I went to the Netherlands for my first time on tour with Noah Guthrie and Good Trouble. We were over there for a few weeks. I think we did like a 2.5 or 3 week run through the Netherlands. It was amazing. And while we were there, we stayed at this wonderful place in Ermelo called Inderimbo, which I believe is Dutch for in the woods. If anybody's Dutch here, you guys can correct me and let me know. And that is owned by a family. And one of the people in that family is named Tice, and Tice is an incredible singer, songwriter, musician, artist. He used to front a rock band called Backgammon in the Netherlands, and since then he's gone off and started his own solo project he calls Roofman. So when I talk about the Roofman album or Roofman, I'm talking about my friend Tice. So we all really hit it off a few years ago. We became fast friends, myself and Philip Conrad, who's one of my best friends and I've been playing with for years. And back in, I believe, late July, early August, I got a call from Tice saying, hey, it's not for sure yet, but I think I landed a record deal and I'm going to be making my first album in Hamburg, Germany. Would you and Phil want to come over to Hamburg to play on the record? And I immediately said, hell yeah, that sounds amazing. Sign me up. So it was several weeks of back and forth, and they were in negotiations for months and months and months. They finally inked the deal, and it came time for us to schedule the session. So back in September, we booked flights, and it was in the red. So on November 8th, beginning of this month, with Phil, we jumped on a plane here in Atlanta, flew out to Hamburg, Germany, and we went to a place called Clouds Hill. So Clouds Hill is a studio. I actually have a studio tour of Clouds Hill going live on the channel tomorrow, so you'll get to see that. And this studio is amazing. I'll save a lot of the details for the video tomorrow, but completely analog studio. We were tracking everything live in the room to 24-track 2-inch tape machine through a Neve console that I don't want to give too much away, but the Neve board that we were playing through has recorded John Lennon, Bob Dylan, U2. It's a pretty cool space. And it was an amazing opportunity. We were there for a little over 2 weeks. We tracked 13 songs, I think, in that 2 weeks. And it's amazing. Musically, it's like an indie rock kind of thing. So very, very indie. Lots of fun. Tice is an incredible songwriter. Amazing songwriter and musician. If you guys want to follow him, he's on Instagram at roofman_official. And I would suggest following him because that's how you're going to stay updated on when. I think the first single's coming out in January. So yeah, if you guys want, go follow roofman_official on Instagram. And yeah, so to answer the first question, I see some top chats coming in, so I will be sure to get to these, and then we'll take some other questions and things like that. But there were really two new pedals that blew my mind. There were 4 pedals in general that really made the session happen. But the first one is this. This is the Endless Summer from Recovery Effects. Now, I was not familiar with Recovery before this session, but the producer and owner of Clouds Hill, Johan Shearer, is an amazing musician and producer, and he's a big fan of these effects. This is a spring reverb that is unlike any spring reverb I've ever heard, and it's a real spring in here. There you go. I don't know if you can hear that. So there's a real spring tank in there. And this is the version 2. On the record, we were using the version 1, and so I was so blown away with it that I immediately jumped on Reverb and found this one and just bought it. It does something very, very cool. I'm going to save it for possibly a video in the future, but it doesn't sound like a Flint or, any typical spring reverb pedal that you're familiar with. This has a massive amount of reverb on tap, like so much so that it's too much for most situations, but it's like a character effect. And so I was using it on the record to basically play a lot of single note lines and very, very simple guitar parts where the sound basically was the hook. The sound was the part. And that Endless Summer, it's amazing. It's all over the record. The other one is this. Now, this is the Truly Beautiful Disaster. This is a super, super gnarly fuzz. And I wasn't using the green one. I was using the yellow version, but it's an oscillating fuzz with a feedback loop, and it has a little photocell there on the top, which you can activate and then modulate the fuzz based off of how much light is hitting that cell. Now, I just unboxed these. I got home yesterday. Was a hell of a travel day. We were up for 24 hours and we didn't get home till super late last night. So I just picked these up right before the stream. Haven't even plugged them in or tried them out yet. But there's one song on the record called You're All Alone Now. And it's like a 10-minute sort of improvised kind of jam thing. And it's the one moment on the whole record where I take a solo, and it was this just crazy fuzz going through a 65 AC30. But there were 2 other pedals that were super influential and made the guitar sounds on this record. And one was the Mood, the Chase Bliss Mood. Incredible piece of gear. I love it. And then the other was the Synesthesia, the GFI Synesthesia. And I wasn't expecting that pedal to be as heavily used as it was, but I used it on almost every song, and specifically because of Cyber Attack. If anybody's not familiar with the YouTube channel Cyber Attack, you should be. Ivan is my favorite guitar YouTuber. He makes these videos, how to be an expert at these effects, and he made one right before I left for my trip. He made one on the Synesthesia, and he has got such a great way of unlocking effects and doing things with them that are so out of the ordinary and making them do weird and sounds that are not mundane. And the GFI video that he released is amazing. And so I actually put his presets in my synesthesia, and his sounds were all over the record. And I was messaging him on Instagram, and I told him, like, hey man, you should probably get an album credit on this because I am using your sounds. So okay, let's get caught up with the top chats here. Let's see. Sean is Cubs fan 1. Hey Rhett, mainly an electric guitar player, but I'm looking for an acoustic. My eyes are set on a Martin 0015. Have you tried it? Cheers from Chicago. I have tried a 000, and in fact, a 000 style guitar I think might be the next acoustic I look for. This is my Bourgeois. I've had it for, I don't know, 8 or 9 years now. It's a slope shoulder dread, so like a J45 style. I absolutely adore this guitar. I got an insane deal on it. I bought it used from a doctor in Maine, and he regretted selling it to me, which I thought was a very, very good sign. It's tuned to D right now. Yeah, it sounds great. But yeah, 000s are amazing. They're really, really well balanced. Either that or I may be looking for a parlor guitar next, but that wasn't your question. I have tried 000s. I really like them. I think they're fantastic all-around guitars. Depending on the style of guitar you play, if you are a little bit lighter in your right hand, you are light picker, or you're more of a fingerstyle player, then I would say a 000 is great. If you're a heavy strummer, I don't think a 000 is going to hold up. And it's going to kind of collapse under your right hand. So I'd go for something like a dread or a slope shoulder like this, which is going to hold up to your strumming a little bit better. Pinewood Guitars, what's up? I recently moved to a small town in the middle of nowhere. My passion is luthier and gigging. How should I find gigs? Luthery? I think luthery is the act of being a luthier. I could be wrong on that. How to find gigs? Go find where the musicians are hanging out and go hang out with them. So most towns will have some kind of open mic, some kind of open jam, some kind of situation where musicians congregate to make music. And that's a really, really great place to start and to find people that you can play with and work with. Obviously in bigger cities, it's a little bit easier because oftentimes you have more of those things happening, more open jams, more open mics, more singer-songwriter nights. That's a great way to go about it too, if you are so inclined. Most of my gigging and the stuff that I have done in my career thus far is playing with singer-songwriters. And, you know, I've gotten some amazing, amazing opportunities to go do some really cool stuff with singer-songwriters, like go to Germany and track on a record. So, yeah, that's how I would go about it. Sorry, trying to read and talk. Is the audio really bad? Okay. Sorry about the audio. My PC is running out of RAM. I think it may actually be an issue with my iMac back here, and I don't understand why it's doing that. Robert Reed, you tracked the Clouds. If yes, you've been there. Yes, I did. We were at Clouds Hill in Hamburg. I don't know the name of the neighborhood we were in because I don't speak German. And I looked it up on my map, but I couldn't pronounce it. You can just Google Clouds Hill and see where we were. Jeremy, when will DEACON KNIGHT release a record? Can't wait. Whenever my studio is done. So hopefully next year sometime. That would be the idea. That's one thing I really, really want to get done. One of the first things I want to do in the studio when it's done is get the guys back together and work on that stuff. Let's see here. Watching in Austin, Texas. Very nice. Please correct more grammar in the chat. It's hilarious. I will. Bear Claw top. Philippe is asking. Yes, this is a Bear Claw spruce top. And this guitar apparently is part of what's called the Sonic Sitka project, if anyone is familiar with that. But quickly, before we get into that, if I want to plug, I've got Cyber Monday sale happening. 40% off of everything, all my video courses, all my Helix presets and profiles and impulse responses. Links are in the description box down below. Use code BF40 at checkout to get 40% off of all the courses. That's just for today and maybe tomorrow, but primarily just for today because it's Cyber Monday. So yeah, I appreciate the support. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. How's this basement studio build going? Very, very slow. We keep running into issues, which is to be expected with a project like this. The house was built in 1974, and so we're running into a lot of issues that old homes have, and we're also running into unexpected structural issues, not meaning the house is falling down, meaning that, we didn't realize it, but in order to move the HVAC system in the furnace, we have to add another support beam, another LVL, which we weren't expecting. So that's now an added expense and time. And yeah, so right now we've finished a lot of the primary framing of the walls. We still have a few walls to knock out, but those walls can't get knocked out until we get LVLs installed, which means we got to get a contractor over here, and they're all backed up, and then the rest of the HVAC work can't get finished until the LVLs get installed. And so it's like everything it's just a big traffic jam right now. I'm hoping to have it done by spring, but who knows, man. Mateo, can you tell us a little bit more about the Fretboard Fundamentals course? Yeah, so the Fretboard Fundamentals course is my most recent video course, and it's basically a course that's designed for guitar players that are complete beginners to intermediate, all the way up to people that have been playing for decades but have some holes in their knowledge of the fretboard. It's basically a guitar theory course that's not too academic. It's designed to get you a complete understanding of the fretboard. So that comes, from scales to chord theory to basic harmony, and then actually applying that stuff to real world situations. So in the course, at the end of the course, I have a few jam tracks, a few play along tracks that are actually 3 Noah songs that are coming up on his new record that I played on. I got Noah's permission to do this, but we take 3 different songs and I walk you through the guitar parts that I came up with and explain what's going on. And then we also have guitar out mixes. So you have the song just with no guitars in it that you can play along with, and take some of the concepts that you learned in the course and apply it to a singer-songwriter Americana rock sound like Noah does. So it's a lot of triads. We talk a lot about triads and the cage system, major and minor pentatonic, relative major and minor, those kind of concepts. It's basically the stuff that I use every day as a guitar player. It's not a course about modes or modal harmony. It's not necessarily a course about improvisation or anything like that. It's really a course on, hey, here is the fundamentals of how the fretboard works. Your basic intervals, your scales, chord structures, how to spice up mundane chords, your typical cowboy chords, being able to play a chord, anywhere on the neck really quickly and confidently. That's the idea behind Fretboard Fundamentals. Robert Reed, what lens are you using for A-roll? Looking to upgrade. Love your framing. Great job. Thanks, man. This is actually a brand new lens I just bought right before the trip. This is the Sony 20mm 1.8 G, not the G Master, but just the G. I wanted a wide angle lens, and this is great. It's a wide angle prime. It's super lightweight. It's got the aperture ring right here on the front, which is super cool. I shouldn't have screwed that up. Okay. So yeah, I took this lens to Germany, and I used it basically exclusively. I flew a few other lenses out and didn't really use them, so that was awesome. Salvador, thanks for Top Chat. Can we get a house tour? I would have bought your house based on your studio room and basement alone. Probably not. I'm not super keen on showing, you know, sort of the more personal side of the house and where we live. I'm really, you know, this was something that Tilly and I talked about when we were first buying the house was, you know, basically only filming in this room and then whenever the studio is done in the basement, and just kind of keeping the rest of the house private. It's important for us. It's a personal thing. But a lot of YouTubers, you know, they shoot all over their houses and it's totally fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just a decision that we made together and decided to do. So. Great Dane, thanks man. Any tips on getting a guitar set up Any tips on setting a guitar up irregular for slide? So any tips on getting a slide set up? Yeah, I like having my guitars basically playing slide on my standard guitar setup. You know, and this one's in standard, but I try and play slide I try to be able to play slide on any guitar no matter the setup. It's a little more difficult on some guitars than it is others. If you're going to have a slide guitar though that you know you're only going to play slide on, I would raise the action just a little bit, because I think you still want to be able to fret notes and ideally play behind the slide, a la Joey Landreth and Ariel Posen, the way those guys do it. But for me, I like being able to play slide on any one of my guitars, because each guitar sounds different with a slide, and it's a cool option to have. So what I do is concentrate with my left hand when playing slide on having as light a touch as possible. So you don't fret out, because when your action is low or in standard setup, it's real easy to like fret out. And so, especially on the first string, so it's a matter of really practicing your touch and getting your intonation right with a light touch. Blade Freak, sign up for your Cool Kids Club. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Is there going to be a Dipped in Tone episode this week, Jonathan? There should be. I got to get back up with Zach, but there should be one or two in the can ready to go. So, Salvador, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Are you going to NAMM next year in 2022? You live near the Anaheim Convention Center. Would like to be. I believe we are going to go to NAMM next year. So the winter summer NAMM, because they're pushing it back to June, I think it is, which I think is good. I don't think we need two NAMMs anymore. But yeah, I think I'll probably be there. Did you meet Omar from Mars Volta? I didn't. He wasn't there. Surprisingly, Sting was at that studio doing a session, I think the week before we got there, which was cool, because then Rick went and did his interview with Sting right after, so it's kind of a weird connection, how the universe does that stuff. But no, so, and for those asking, Clouds Hill has they remastered the Mars Volta and released the Mars Volta box set this year, and that was a huge part of what they were doing, what the label was working on. It's really cool, man. Clouds Hill is a recording studio. It's a residential studio, meaning that you live there. There's a whole apartment, a band apartment underneath the studio. So that was amazing. I've never worked at a residential studio before, and honestly, that's the way to do it, where you live where you work. The studio was open 24/7, so there was many nights where we just went upstairs and the guys, the engineers there left the equipment on, they left the Neve on and everything. And so whenever we wanted to practice or we had a little too much to drink and we wanted to go hang out and make noise, we could do that. And it was really cool because it helped you stay in a certain headspace. I think there's something to the idea of, where you work and where you live being in the same place. There can be a lot of positives to it. There can be a lot of negatives to it. But in this situation, it was really, really cool getting to work there. So Clouds Hill is a studio with an A room and a B room, an amazing B room. And it's also a record label, and it's a publishing company, and they are a vinyl distribution house. I mean, they do all kinds of stuff, which is really, really cool. But yeah. You think the Bosnian Rainbow record was made live there? It was. So Johan Scherer, the producer who produced Roofman's record, produced the Bosnian Rainbow record. He did the Pete Doherty record. Hamburg Demonstrations was done there. The other Omar Rodriguez Lopez project, there was a triple album that was recorded there as well. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But yeah, it really was. I mean, the name of the name of the stream is not clickbait. This really was a dream come true for me. I felt really, really honored to have had the opportunity to go to another country and play on an album like this. The songs, Tice's songs are so good. He's really put in the work. He was telling me that last year during the pandemic, when the shutdown happened, he wrote, I think, 150 songs. And right now he's got about 3 albums worth of material. So who knows, maybe before this time next year, we might be going back to Clouds Hill to make the next record, which would be awesome. But it really was a dream come true for me. Like, when I was at music school, when I was at AIM 10 years ago, this is what I had envisioned doing. Not YouTube. YouTube wasn't even a thing, really, when I was in music school. But the idea of, like, traveling the world to play music and to make really cool records with really, really great people was an absolute dream come true. It was super inspiring. And I learned a ton. So if you're just joining, tomorrow you'll have the studio tour video coming out, the Clouds Hill studio tour. It's long. It's like 30 minutes long, but it's a big studio. There's a lot to go through. And I'll be interested to see what you guys think about it. I've never done a studio tour video before. This is something kind of new for me. I'm a big fan of Andrew Masters. If anybody's familiar with his channel, he does a lot of the studio tour things, and they're all great. So we've got that coming out. And then I do have a Backstage Journal vlog of the whole process, but it probably won't come out until next year when the record gets ready to drop. Maybe I'll push it in December January when the first single drops. But thanks, Scott. I appreciate the top chat, man. Thank you so much. When can we hear this record? I'm not sure. It'll probably be late summer of next year. And they'll probably release a few singles, like, starting in January. But that's a whole thing, man, that I don't really know much about when it comes to releasing albums and promotion and all that stuff. That's a little bit out of my wheelhouse. Any update on the pedal you're working on? Yeah, so for those of you that don't listen to Dipped in Tone, the podcast that I do with Zach Broyles from MythosFX, you should be. It's on YouTube. But we are working on a fuzz pedal under the name Shoyles, which started off as a joke on the podcast, as what would be a terrible name for a pedal company, and Shoyles, which is a combination of Shull and Broyles. And then it just kind of stuck, and we decided to roll with it. So we're working on a fuzz right now. And by we are working on a fuzz, I mean Zach is doing all the work, and I'm just bouncing ideas off of him. Like, hey, what if we did this? And I'm increasing his workload. But it's going to be really cool. So the gist of it is a tone bender type circuit with a separate octave up circuit that you can run independently of the fuzz. So it's an octave fuzz tone bender that you can control the octave. And there's also a null control for the octave, so you can control how much octave is blended in with the fuzz. There's one prototype right now that I actually haven't played yet. Zach still has it. I need to get my hands on it. And we're ironing out some issues right now with the... there's a circuit that we decided to put in there where you could change the order of the octave if you wanted the octave before or after the fuzz circuit. And turns out that is pretty difficult to do. That's a pretty difficult circuit to put in. So it's something that sounds simple, like, oh, just put a dip switch on there and you can switch the order around. But it's apparently pretty hard, and it's causing some issues that Zach is trying to work out. So hopefully I'll have the prototype down here the next couple weeks to check out. And then I think we're going to do an initial run of like 25 or so that may or may not be available for sale. We're not sure. And then depending on how those go, we'll put those into production. But yeah, the Shoyles fuzz. Right now, the best name that I've heard recommended for it was somebody on the podcast recommended we call it the SH1Z, which I think is awesome, but Zach hates it, so we might not go with that, but I think it's great. TM, thank you. What's up, bro? I was thinking of buying a Revolta in the near future. Any specific models / similar guitars you recommend? I really like the Revolta stuff. I really like the Combinata with two P90s and the Duesenberg style trim on it. I think that's probably the move. The Mandata is also cool. The triple pickup Mandata with the mini humbuckers is really, really cool. I actually have one that I'm going to be giving away soon. It's a white one. But yeah, I think the Revolta stuff is really well made, and it's a lot of guitar for the money. It's an import brand. They're made overseas. I think they're made in Korea, I believe. And I believe, last I heard, they're made in the same factory that makes Duesenberg, but don't hold me to that. That may have changed. Somebody can look that up. But yeah, they're really well-built guitars. They sound great. And personally, I love the style. I love the look, but I'm a big Dennis Fano fan. So I like what Dennis designs. Anything else I'd recommend? Maybe in that same price range and same style, you might look at a Harmony. I think the Harmony stuff is really cool. It's made at the same factory that makes Heritage guitars, which is the old Gibson Kalamazoo factory. And the Harmony stuff that I've played so far has been pretty cool. I've only had my hands on a couple of them here and there, but I think they're cool. A lot of guitar for the money there as well. One more plug for the Cyber Monday sale. I've got 40% off of everything in my store. That's all 3 video courses and all my Helix presets, Kemper Profiles. Soon, I will have AxeFx and Fractal presets available. That's something we're going to start working on soon. Actually, how many of you in the chat, how many people are Fractal users? Let me know. But if you want 40% off of everything, my courses are BF40 at checkout. And if you buy one of the Helix presets or Kemper Profiles, the code or the discount is added at checkout. All the links are in the description box down below. What kind of bourbon am I drinking? This is the last of my Whistle Pig 12 year. This was a birthday gift from my family earlier this year, back in March. This is a Whistle Pig 12, and it's phenomenal. And I feel like I did a pretty good job by making this all the way to the end of November, taking one bottle to the end of November. But how'd our boy Phil do over there? You watched the video he put up and looked like y'all had a great time. Yeah, dude, Phil absolutely killed it. So if you don't know Philip Conrad, he's a bass player, and he's starting out on YouTube. Philip Conrad, look him up. Phil is one of my best friends. He and I met at music school 10 years ago at AIM, and we've been playing together basically ever since. He's basically my most trusted musical companion. So it was really cool to be able to go and do this with him. In fact, I don't know that I would have done it without him. He and I are really, really close. So he did great. Phil is a producer through and through. He has such a mind for arranging and really has a firm grasp on how a song should go, how a song should flow. Yeah, he's great, man. So, and he's just starting out on YouTube, and he vlogged the whole thing, and it was funny to watch and to talk about it with him, because he was like, man, this is so hard, like trying to shoot everything and do the session and make sure I've got all the angles and the footage. And I was like, yeah, tell me about it. I've been doing it for a few years. But his video came out great, and he's been killing it, man. His entire channel thus far has been shot on his phone. He makes all of his videos with his smartphone, and it was great because he just hit 1,000 subscribers, and his deal with himself was he wouldn't allow himself to buy a camera until he hit 1,000 subscribers. And so it finally happened, and it happened while we were tracking a song called One Drop. We were in the live room actually tracking, and it was the take that made the record. So when you listen to the Roofman album and you hear the song One Drop, at some point in that song, Phil hit his 1,000 subscribers, which if anyone has tried on YouTube, getting 1,000 subscribers is really difficult. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it is. There's a saying that, your first 1,000 subscribers is the hardest. Then your first 10,000 subscribers is the hardest. Then your first 100,000 subscribers is the hardest. And I think that's a pretty good way of summing it up. It is a ton of work. And it's particularly difficult when you're first starting out, because you're putting your soul and everything you have into these videos that nobody's watching. They're getting 20 or 30 views at a time. And you just have to push through it and stick with it, and he's done an amazing job. So yeah, Philip Conrad, everyone, on YouTube, go check him out. Cool, all right, we'll take a couple more questions here. Any cheaper Marshall type amp you would recommend? Yes, the Victory Sheriff 22. I've got one sitting right over here on my desk. It's phenomenal. It's really good. It's got a lot of great features, and it's a usable wattage, 22 watts, but you can also, it has like a 1/2 watt output on the back, so you can play at bedroom volume. It's got 2 inputs. The top input is more like late 60s plexi kind of sounds. The bottom input is more gain. It's more like JCM 800 kind of sounds. But yeah, the Sheriff 22 from Victory. I did get it for free. They did send it to me a few years ago, so fair warning there. But I really loved that amp. I use it all the time. Oh, you're a friend of Tyson Pimm's. Awesome, man. Yeah, I'm really excited to hear the way this this record comes out as well. Oh, Kobe, thank you for the top chat. Greetings from Switzerland. What type of divided by 13s are those on the shelf? So the top one, the black and white one, is the RSA 23. That's Rusty Anderson's signature. Rusty Anderson from Paul McCartney's band, among many other things. And that is like a sort of British voiced kind of thing. It does, so the left channel, which is here, does Voxy type things, some lighter high watt kind of stuff. And then the right channel, the click channel, as it's called, is very Marshall-y, but not quite a plexi. The thing I really like about Fred's amps is they do their own thing. Like, that's not an AC30, it's not a Marshall, it's not a high watt, but it can kind of touch on those different areas. The white and black one down here, this is the FTR 37. This is the first one I got back in 2016. This amp has been all over the place with me. I love it. And it's the Fender version of this amp, basically. So this is 6v6, and the left channel here does your tweed stuff, your blackface stuff. And then interestingly, the click channel is really, really gainy. Not really anything Fender would have made. It has its own sort of character to it. It's really, really cool. But yeah, if you've never played a divided by 13, if you have the opportunity, I'd highly recommend it because they're cool and they're built like absolute tanks on the inside. Fred just overbuilds the hell out of those amps. It's great. Also, I get a lot of questions. I get a lot of questions about the shelf itself, the shelf itself. So that's actually a piece of furniture from Crate and Barrel that my wife and I bought like 2 years ago. It was on clearance because it was a scratch and dent. Apparently there's like a big dent or scratch or something in the back of it. So we got a really good deal on it. And I don't think they make it anymore. And it was in our living room until we moved, and I hijacked it because I thought it would make the perfect amp shelf, and I was right. It's the perfect amp shelf. And when the movers were moving our stuff in, when they were moving this in, I said, "Hey, take that upstairs." And here it stands. So I stole it from our living room to put in here, and it works incredibly well. What's the orange amp? This is an Orange 8030. This is a early 2000s model, so it's not like the current 8030. This is from I believe Gibson owned Orange at this time. It's from, I think, 2003. This is a sleeper amp right here. They're hard to find. This one was a gift for my 30th birthday from Rick. He found one. He had one back in the day at his studio, and then he found one and gave it to me. It's amazing. It's honestly, it's like an AC30, but has way more gain on tap than an AC30. This is what Jimmy Page was using on the Zeppelin reunion tour back in 06, 07. He had two of these. They were black. The single channel AD30s. If you can find one online, you should buy it because they are phenomenal. They're kind of hard to find. And I have a friend, or I know a guy here in Atlanta that used to work for Orange, and I kept telling him, like, dude, you need to tell them to reissue this amp. They need to make this amp again, because right now they don't, and it's a shame. They don't have anything in their lineup that's like this, and it kicks ass. It's so, so good. Blade Freak just ran into a vintage Supro Thunderbolt amp. Thoughts? Looked cool too. So yeah, with vintage amps, you need to do a health check on them. So take it to a competent amp tech if you're serious about buying it. Yeah, maybe this is a video idea here, but when it comes to buying vintage amps, always pull the chassis out and start looking for stuff. Does it have the original speaker? Are the transformers original? Are the caps original? Depending on the year, if the caps, like the filter caps, are original, it's probably going to need a cap job. Has it had a 3-prong plug installed? If it hasn't, it probably needs one, unless you're super keen on keeping it absolutely original and like collector shape. If you're going to use the amp, it probably needs a 3-prong plug. Speaker original condition, but that's what I would do. Pull the chassis out and take a good look at it. Has it been modified? Has someone tried to repair it in the past? Like, look at the solder joints, look at, do things look original? Do some research on those amps. Spend some time online and learn, what should you look for? There's probably plenty of documentation on some forum somewhere about that amp and what makes a good one, and then play it. Does it have any issues? Sometimes, there was a while ago, I played one of those old Supros. I can't remember which model it was. And it looked great, but when I played it, it was way, way too quiet. With the volume all the way up, it sounded like it was barely turned on. So there's an issue with that amp. It may be something small, maybe just a tube or whatever, but still, that's something you want to be wary of. When I bought my AC30 last year, I went and looked at it. I had them pull the back panel off of it and took a look at the circuit. I took pictures and I sent it around to a few people that know those amps. And luckily everyone that I sent it to said, yes, that's a clean amp, buy that. It had just been serviced. I called the guy in Florida that serviced the amp, and I had him give me a whole rundown of why did you do what you did, what did it need, what was wrong with it. That amp was pretty expensive, and so I wanted to make sure I got a good one, especially when it comes to AC30s and vintage AC30s. You just want to make sure you get the right one. And also with certain amps, especially vintage amps, a lot of them have little quirks you need to know about. So for instance, my AC30 is one of the narrow panels. The vent panels on the top in my year, in early 64, were really narrow. They hadn't expanded the panels yet. So those early AC30s are prone to overheating because they don't vent well enough. So that's important to know. Whenever I run that amp, I have a small fan that I sit on the ground behind the amp, and I just, on its lowest setting, I just blow air into the back of the amp to get it circulating. So yeah, those are my thoughts. When it comes to vintage amps, it really comes down to a case-by-case basis, and those are the things you should look for. Are all overdrive pedals really just EQ pedals? No. There's a difference between distortion and equalization. I think a lot of, or most overdrive pedals are imparting an EQ curve onto your sound, and that's part of the tone of those pedals. Some do it more than others, some do it less, but saying an overdrive is an EQ is not correct. An EQ pedal is not imparting any clipping onto your signal, unless it is a distortion or an overdrive with an EQ section. A standalone EQ pedal is just shaping certain frequency points. So now in my video, I talked about using an EQ as a boost to get more gain out of your amp. And that is getting more gain out of your amp because it's hitting the front end of your amp harder, which is causing your preamp section to break up and saturate. And that's where you're clipping. That's where your distortion is coming from. It's from the preamp section and the power amp section of your amplifier breaking up, not the pedal itself. An overdrive like, you know, a Tube Screamer or a Morning Glory has components inside the pedal that are actually adding a certain level of distortion or clipping. And the way in which those components clip, the amount that they clip, how the rest of the circuit is voiced, you know, is it blending the clipping in with a clean signal? I mean, there's so many other things that go into it, but no, a overdrive pedal is not just an EQ pedal, or vice versa. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it, man. A couple questions on the guitar. This is a Bourgeois Slope D, or Bourgeois, however you say it. There's an R in there, so maybe Bourgeois. I bought this 8 or 9 years ago from a collector in Maine, a doctor, and it's amazing. I love this guitar. All right, everyone. Well, I'm going to sign off here. Thanks so much for watching. And don't forget, we've got the Cyber Monday sale happening this week. Use code BF40 at checkout to get 40% off of all of my video courses. And if you're interested in Helix presets, Kemper Profiles, or impulse responses, the discount is automatically applied. You can find those links in the description box down below. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. And I will see you guys tomorrow for the Clouds Hill Studio Tour walkthrough. So thanks, everyone.